Good morning, YouTube. Casual Tommy again, on my way to work on my wedding week. This weekend was my Bucks party. We had a fantastic weekend, actually. Me and 8 of my closest friends went to one of the most beautiful golf courses and golf resorts in this country. And we had an awesome weekend of reliving memories, drinking, and playing a fantastic game of golf. None of them are golfers. I dragged them all out there and they all did it for me. So much respect to them for making the effort. I really do appreciate it, to everyone. It was a fantastic weekend. So a quick wristwatch check. I'm actually wearing what this video is about. My lovely Seiko 5. The reference number is SNK607. Beautiful little Seiko 5. That's actually the topic of today's video. I actually considered wearing this for my wedding. You'll know why anyway. I'll explain why. So, what are we looking at when we have this watch? Specs wise, look, it's just a Seiko 5. It's a stainless steel case, 36mm. Beautiful. It's a beautiful watch. 7S26 movement, 21 jewel, day date complication, 43-hour power reserve, 30-meter water resistance, display back, like all Seiko 5s, and an integrated bracelet. The bracelet's actually quite nice. It's a very nice looking watch, if you ask me. So, why do I love my Seiko 5? Well, it's where the journey began, and it is for a lot of people. I think the Seiko 5 range is by far the best first watch for people. It has a model for every taste. They are all very affordable. I purchased this watch for less than $100 Australian. So this watch was about 70 USD, brand new. And I bought this 12 years ago and it is still going. This is the beginning of my journey, and it's the beginning of so many people's journey that it has to be called out as the best watch at its value. It's the best watch at its price range. So, why do I love the watch? It is where my journey began. Prior to this, I had a few fashion watches. That were just fashion statements. To me, watches were fashion statements. And this watch transformed that into a mechanical wonder and a hobby. My true passion for watches started purely because of this watch. I bought this watch because a teacher told me to buy watches. I got into watches because a lecturer of mine at business school said to me, well, successful people wear luxury watches. So I went out and bought a watch from a luxury brand. Now, it wasn't a horologically significant luxury brand. Things like Armani, Guess, all of those brands. And I'd heard of Seiko, and I saw this watch on the internet. I think I bought it from a website called iOffer, which is typically known for fake watches. I should say fake products. But this watch is real. She makes it even better. I was so lucky to get a real watch out of it. And look, I recognised the brand Seiko. I had previously had a quartz Seiko. No, that's not true, actually. I had lay-byed a quartz Seiko and then failed to pay it off at that point in my life. And I ended up with, when I ended up getting a bit more money behind me, I ended up seeing this online, so I bought it. And that's where the passion began. This is where my true passion began. For me, this watch represents change and growth in my life. So, I mean, I just told this story on Instagram, but prior to this watch, at this period of my life, I was a professional touring musician. I was playing in 4 different bands just to try to survive, and I was not doing a good job. I was a professional touring musician, and I knew that I either had to make it, or I had to make a change, because I was never going to be able to provide myself the life that I wanted without making a serious change. So that's what this watch represents for me. It represents growth. And that change that I made was I went to university. I finished off my high school education. I turned myself around. I got interested in business. I started studying. I cut all my hair off. I started presenting myself in a much more society-friendly manner. And this watch was a turning point for a lot of that. This watch, to me, represented a change. Climbing up the ladder, a conscious effort to change the way I feel about myself, and hoping that would change the way other people felt about me, and it worked. And this watch represents that for me. I bought this watch over 12 years ago, and it's still going, and I still find time to wear it. It still has a place in my collection. That's probably something I love the most about this watch, is that sitting next to a Rolex, this watch still has a place in a collection. Not just because of its meaning its emotional significance to me. I mean, this watch, every ding on this watch saw me. I was a one-watch guy for a long time, and this was my one watch. This watch has been there through a lot of it for me. So yeah, for me, I love the fact that this watch is where the journey did begin. And it does represent a great deal of change and personal growth for me. I also love the dimensions and the general aesthetic of it. I still do. I still think it's one of the best. I wish you could capture it on camera, but it's got a beautiful textured dial. You'll never see it. Beautiful textured dial. The dimensions of the watch, it's a 36mm watch. So, I mean, I have no problem. My everyday watch is 35mm. I have no problem with small watches, and I think this is why. Because the watch that got me into the hobby, is a 36mm dress watch, really. 11mm thick, it's just perfect thickness. I love the textured dial, I really do. That is my favourite thing aesthetically about this watch. I love the sharp hands and indices, reflects light. This tiny little bit of lume that still goes. When you get this in the right angle, the logo and the indices reflect back on the crystal. I love it. You could say that's a lack of anti-reflective coating, but it does give a really interesting, it gives it an interesting aesthetic. It has an integrated bracelet. A lot of people don't like that. There is a model that's the exact same case pretty much, but with a standard style bracelet, so you can replace the bracelet as you like, which is probably a bit better on retrospect, but I do like that it was not complicated back then. I didn't think about changing watch straps when I bought this. I didn't even know it had an integrated watch strap. I didn't know what that was when I bought this watch. I think the pros and cons of the integrated watch strap is a pro is that it just looks right. It looks like it is the right strap for it looks like it is the right band for this watch. It really does. It's yes, it is a cheap and nasty Seiko bracelet, but it doesn't have the cheap hollow end links because it doesn't have hollow end links. But I've always liked it. It looks right. And obviously the con is that there's no variation. There's no variety to what you can pull off of this watch. If this watch did have the ability to put it on a leather, it would just elevate it up. It would elevate this level, this watch, definitely. What else do I love? I love its value. Its value versus its cost. This watch is very affordable. Watches don't get much more affordable than this. You can buy this watch with your lunch money, and I would suggest doing so. I think for a kid, these are fantastic watches, but this watch was less than $100. I've spent more on jeans that I wear for 6 months and then outgrow and then throw them in the bin, or they snag something and they tear. This watch is over 12 years old, still operates at the same standard that it did the day I got it, and it's never had a service. And I will service this watch. It's, to be honest, I probably wouldn't service it. I'd probably replace the movement in it if I needed to. But this watch is not going anywhere in my collection. It has always got a place. Something else I love about this watch is the sound and the feel of the rotor. To be honest, that's actually what got me into watches properly. I went from having my fashion brands, and then I bought this watch, not knowing anything about it. I didn't even know this had a display case back. I didn't know what quartz or automatic was. I didn't know any of that. I just bought the watch. This was before YouTube. This is before mass social media. It was a very different world then. So when I bought this watch and it landed, I opened it up and I turned it around, and seeing the innards of this watch absolutely made me an enthusiast immediately. Immediately it kicked it off. I realized, holding this in my hand, that this was a different beast to all of my other watches. And when I say all of my other, I think I had two or three. I had three Armanis in the end. Three. This watch was a different thing. This watch had moving parts in it. I couldn't see a battery. It took me a while to realize it didn't have a battery. And and I know that's a common story. A lot of people get obsessed with Seiko 5s, get obsessed with watches through the intricacies of seeing their Seiko 5's movement. And that's what it did for me. When I realized you could, when I realized you had to shake the watch to get it moving, I'd get up and I'd shake it, and you would hear the rotor. Now, you wouldn't hear a grinding sound, but you would physically just hear a whoosh of the rotor spin, and you could feel it in your hand. I now know that you shouldn't do that to a watch. Luckily, it had no ill effect on this watch because of how tough this thing is, but I'd give it a shake, and I knew that if you could shake it and stop and jerk it while shaking it, the rotor would just start whirring, and you'd feel it in your hand. That's actually what got me into watches. The discovery of that, realizing that they are alive. I had no idea it would last 12 years. I had no idea I'd be buying a Rolex. I didn't have any of those kind of aspirations, or even those thoughts weren't even crossing my mind. I just purchased such a cool watch that made the rest of my watches seem insignificant. So yeah, look, the sound and feel of the rotor, that really did it for me. Something else I love about this watch is that it's always getting people into watches. This watch is responsible for more horological enthusiasts than any other watch. This has converted more people. This has built more watch enthusiasts than any Lange, than any Rolex. Oh mate, than Grand Seiko. I would say that this watch gets more people interested in watches than a Grand Seiko. I use it as my entry point into the hobby for people. So I'm sure, as you know, when you're a collector, when you're an enthusiast, you can't help but spread that passion. The people around you know about your passion. It's hard for them not to. And it's probably not from them seeing your watch, it's probably from you talking about it, or you looking at web pages, or reading articles or videos. Who knows, you might be watching this video and someone is listening along and says, "What's that idiot talking about?" And you say, "Watches." Oh, well, what's he talking about? A cheap watch. This watch gets people into watches. When I am spreading my passion and other people are learning about my passion along the way, there have been at least 5 people, probably more, but at least 5 that I can actively think of, that have bought watches and gotten into watches because of me and through me. Each time it happens, I push them towards a Seiko 5. I push executives. I push people with high incomes to buy a Seiko 5 for their first watch, or for their first real watch, I should say. Because it's just so perfect. There's no money sink if it doesn't work out. There is a style for everybody. If you're not concerned about the horological tiers, you will be so proud of wearing one of these watches. You will recognize that you're wearing an enthusiast's watch. Seiko 5s are the best value for money. Everybody should have them. I guess a key for me is that this will always be in my collection. I might not add another Seiko 5. I might. Who knows? That Seiko field watch for $50. I mean, that's... if I had to start again, that would be my beta. Tomorrow that would become my beta. Even though I might not be considering more Seiko 5s or another Seiko at this stage, this will always be in my collection. I could never bring myself to sell this watch. I mean, it's not worth enough to sell, that definitely helps, but I could not bring myself to sell this watch or to throw it in the bin. This watch will always have a cushion in my collection. It will sit next to Rolex. It might sit next to a Patek one day. And it'll probably get more wrist time, to be fair. I don't wear it too often, but I find leading around periods of change, this watch helps me remain focused, remain grounded, and to help me recognize, it helps me recognize that small changes can lead to big things in the future. And this watch definitely helps me with that understanding and for self-reflection. So it's been through a lot with me. This watch has been through more than pretty much all of my watches. The condition of it is incredible. It's definitely been worn, and worn by a one-watch guy for years, but this watch has been there through a lot, and will still continue to be there through a lot. This watch will be on my wrist. This watch will be in my box until the end of my collection. That is no joke, no doubt about that. Alright guys, thanks for watching the video. Hopefully you've made it this far. If you enjoyed the video, please like the video. If you have something to say, please comment. I'd really like to know what was your first mechanical watch, because that's really what this video is. It's a video and the story of my first mechanical watch. So please let me know down in the comments exactly what was your first mechanical watch and your first quartz. What did that journey look like? So like the video if you enjoyed it, comment down below about your first automatic, and subscribe if you want to see more. I'm going to keep pumping out videos eventually until someone starts watching. Find me on Instagram, casual_Tommy89, where you'll see proper photos of my collection. I don't really get the opportunity to make high quality edited videos, nor do I have an interest to. So if you want to actually see my watches, your best bet is to jump on my Instagram, and you'll see what I'm wearing for the day, or what I've just wound up for the weekend. Yeah, I'm starting to get a bit of a following there, so check it out guys, and have a good day. Thanks a lot.